Hey everyone, this is Steve Weintraub with Collider. I am here at our Comic-Con studio 2024, and I am thrilled to be here with Ronald D. Moore, otherwise known as Ron Moore, otherwise known as someone who's really fucking good at his job. How you doing today, sir?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm doing excellent. Listen, I got a million questions. I don't even know where to start, so I'm just gonna start, I guess, with For All Mankind.
Okay.
How is that going right now?
It's great. We just started shooting on season 5, which is fantastic. I can't believe we're in season 5 already. It's kind of crazy. And we're in the writing period of the spin-off series, which is Star City, which is very exciting. You know, I'm very happy that Apple was supportive of that whole concept and to do it and to tell the story from, the cosmonaut point of view and how the Russians got to the moon first and, what it was like to work in that program. I didn't know a lot about the Russian space program before I started doing this project. I knew an awful lot about the American program. But I think most Americans don't know a lot of details about that. And it was pretty, ballsy stuff that they did. The spacecraft were not quite as reliable as ours were. They lost a lot of good people on them. The conditions were tough. They also had things like the KGB being around and hanging out in mission control. And, so there's a lot of espionage and Cold War kind of environments that you're dealing with in that particular show. So it's a familiar tale in terms of the narrative from people who watch Mankind. They know the Soviets got there first, and they know that they have a robust space program in our alternate history. But certainly the details of how that program worked and what it was like to be on the inside of that program, I think are going to be really interesting to the audience.
I have so many follow-ups. So the first thing is, do you envision with For All Mankind, you guys, everyone has talked about it like a 7-year plan. For this Star City, how did it come together? Was it you guys saying, we have this idea, we have an idea for 5 years, we have an idea for 3, or how much was Apple, we're doing really well with this, we want to do more?
It was a nice synthesis of both, because we had an idea for how to expand, For All Mankind in general. We had talked about what are the possibilities, what are the other stories we can tell in this universe, because we had created essentially a whole alternate universe, and what are the ways that we could explore it. And one of the first ones on that short list was, well, what about the Russian point of view? And we were also hearing such positive feedback from Apple that they were very receptive to the idea of doing, something else. So it wasn't a tough sell at all. They kind of said, yeah, the audience likes it. The show's doing really well. We love it. We, Apple, they're very supportive of the show from the top ranks of the corporation. They're kind of fans of the show, which has been really nice.
That's the secret, because for me as a fan, I never know, Apple, let me be honest here. Apple doesn't have the biggest market share on streaming. It's like Netflix, but Apple, for me, is my favorite streaming service. I think they make the best content, and I hate using the word content, but the best shows, and their sci-fi is incredible. They're the best.
They've become like the destination for premium science fiction. It's really something, and I think they take enormous pride in trying to do, when they do a show, they try to do it the best they possibly can. They give it resources. They try to make sure that it's realized at a top level across the board. They try to attract top talent, top writers, and they're very supportive of content in trying to do as best you can possibly do.
So with Star City, did you guys map out an idea that you think could go multiple seasons, 5 years, 7 years, or is it one of these where it's more like season by season?
No, we have a path. We have a general arc, and probably not as detailed as what we started off with on For All Mankind, but we have a general sort of, okay, here's the structure of how this would play out over several seasons.
Is it one of these things where you're going to do, and this might be too much, are you aiming to do what For All Mankind does, which is like an 8, 9, 10-year jump after each season?
I'm not sure what the jumps will be. We know we are going to jump through time. We haven't quite got to that point yet. It's probably still in the decade or so jump ahead. We don't know if we're going to do exactly what the Mankind jumps were, or if we'll try to split them in the middle. But it's still a format that works for us and makes it a unique part of this universe. And it also allows their space program to advance.
Sure.
That was why we did it on Mankind, so that you could see the advancement, in chunks, instead of getting stuck in a very limited time frame where there really wouldn't be a lot of change.
Last question on Star City. I'm curious about how will the accents be portrayed? Have you thought about that? Will it be like Russian accents talking English? Will it be one of those like Hunt for Red October things where they're talking Russian, they're zooming in, and all of a sudden everyone's talking English?
Like I said, they're writing it right now, so that's one of the questions that's on the table at the moment is, okay, how do we do that? And I know that Matt and Ben have played around with different ideas about it, and I don't know that they've locked into exactly how we're going to do it.
Because there's an element, I think, there, for me, I would actually like to hear everyone speaking Russian with English subtitles, but I'm the minority.
Yeah.
Like, I know that. But is that even something you're talking about?
We're probably not going to do that, but it has been discussed.
Going into For All Mankind, last season ends with a pretty cool Easter egg of that shot of there's a flag, and I'm just curious, what can you tease?
Not a lot, you know. I mean, like I said, we just started shooting it, so it's we got some big surprises coming, as we always do. We're working through sort of what the finale is, because, you know, even though we just started shooting, we're starting to structure out sort of the last third of the season. And there's big changes on the Martian base, and there's big changes politically back on Earth.
How is it, do you normally have all the scripts done when you're shooting, or is it sort of like we have 5 and then we're still writing?
It varies. The ideal is you have them all ready. We've never had them all ready. You usually have, like 5 to 6, kind of depending on how many you get ahead, and then the rest in some kind of outline form or story treatment form. And you're always trying to. I don't know how some shows do that. They manage to write them all in advance, but we've never actually done that. Every
time I talk to you, and anytime I talk to everyone from For All Mankind, I say the same question, and here we go. You should know what's coming. When am I getting the starship?
It's not out of the question. We do talk about it, so it's, we'll see.
See, my thing is, I'm so happy that Apple is making a spin-off, but it's like, for me, I'm still thinking that, like, after For All Mankind, I think the best spin-off is jumping 100 years ahead, and then you're doing Star Trek, but in For All Mankind.
Right. This too has been discussed among many other possibilities.
I really want you to make this happen, sir. I know you have some history with Star Trek, and I think it would be very cool.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, like, also, like, Apple could have a Star Trek show.
Yeah.
Like, and I know it would be done right.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I know you signed a deal with Sony.
Mm-hmm.
So what exactly does that entail in terms of, like, what does it entail?
It's a new deal. So I'm developing shows for Sony now, some from existing IP, some things I'm thinking of creating myself, or other writers pitch to me. So it's an overall deal, and it's the objective is to develop multiple new series going forward.
What is going on with Outlander right now?
Shooting season 8, the final season. The second part of season 7 premieres, I believe, November 22nd, and we don't have an air date for the last season yet. There's also a spin-off series of that called Blood of My Blood, which goes into Jamie's parents, and we're back at Castle Leoch in Scotland, which is kind of cool to go back and recreate some of those sets and the castle, which was in the Scottish Highlands, and sort of revisiting that whole world where the show had kind of left many seasons ago. And also we're going to get to know Claire's parents too, which would be kind of cool.
Have you figured out the final shot of Outlander?
I have not, but I bet Matt Roberts has.
Right, but you know what I mean? Like,
I do know what you mean. Yeah.
It's just like, the show has been so successful.
Yeah.
And it's like, where and how do you want to end it?
Yeah. I mean, Matt, who's the current showrunner, who's run it for the last few seasons, is writing the finale. And I know he's we've all talked, been a lot of discussion and tremendous amount of thought about, what's the final note that the series should end on? But, I defer to Matt on how he decides to do that.
When, and pardon me for not knowing, when is the prequel currently shooting? Is it?
It's been shot. We have shot the prequel, yeah.
There we go. I apologize for not knowing. No. So is there a plan for it to come out? Do you know when it's coming out?
I don't have air dates for the prequel or for the final season.
Okay.
There'll be, but probably, I think the prequel is most likely in 20... No, I shouldn't even say. I was going to say I think one is in 25 and one's 24, but I don't know which is which off the top of my head, and I don't want to say it wrong.
Do you know how many episodes was the prequel? Did you shoot like 8, 10? Is it one of those 16 deals?
I believe the prequel is 10.
How much debate nowadays? Because some streamers are now pushing towards 6. Apple sometimes does 9, 8, or 10. How did you guys decide on that number? Was it a studio note? Was it, how did you figure it out?
I think it's a combination of factors. There's what the network wants to do, what fits on their schedule. Then it becomes a budgetary question, and then a practical question, especially when you're juggling, 2 shows that are being shot at the same facility, in Scotland. So there was also a scheduling issue of, how many episodes could you shoot? And what's the transition to the other show? So it was a complicated formula to get to the number.
What did you learn making Outlander that you made sure that before contracts were signed for the prequel, like, did you learn anything that you're like, we need to make sure that we have this with the cast, or this to make sure that show it, you know what I mean? Like,
Not, not much. You don't really change. They're all kind of standard deals, and in success, things change.
Sure.
That's just the rule of the business. So I don't think that there was a big difference between the deals that the Outlander cast signed and the Blood of My Blood cast signed. Except, but if the shows are successful, these things get revisited and things change.
Are you surprised or happy that DS9, I feel like, is finally getting the respect it deserves?
I'm very pleased about that. We always felt that, someday they'll love us. Someday they'll love us, we told each other.
Right.
It's nice that they do.
I love DS9. And
I think it's great.
And the thing about DS9 for me is, like, even the first season, it's like good. Like, it just kicks its door and just goes.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your time on that. I really love the series. So talk a little bit about your time on that show and what it means to you.
It was a very special show for me. I sort of liken it to doing grad school, and that Next Generation was undergrad for me. And then I got to go to grad school and really learn television and really get deeper into characters and really deeper into production. I learned a tremendous amount from Ira Bear, who was
Sure.
essentially running that show. And it was just fun. We had a sense of breaking new ground all the time. We were trying to introduce more serializations into the Star Trek format. We were taking characters into sort of darker, more ambiguous corners, telling more challenging stories, playing with the format. It was just a really fun time where we kind of felt like we're really redefining what Star Trek is with this show. And, we kind of felt we could have kept going. It was 7 seasons, but the whole staff would have been happy to do 8, 9, and 10.
I would have been very happy if you guys had done 8, 9, and 10. This is also going back to why I want you involved in a Star Trek show that takes place after For All Mankind, because I don't, obviously that tone of For All Mankind is very realistic, grounded, based in science fact.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting because, DS9 obviously playing with science fiction.
Yeah.
So it's a completely different take on, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're different shows, and they exist in different universes. I mean, it has been interesting as we've gone further down the timeline on For All Mankind. It's become more and more science fiction.
Sure.
So we're dealing with bigger sci-fi concepts and just trying to keep them as grounded as real as we can, so that everything that we do seems like it's plausible. Like this could happen, and maybe we fudge some of the details here and there, but we try to keep inside the lines, and we really try to keep it as speculative fiction.
That's the reason why I'm very curious about season 5 and, God willing, 6 and 7, because you guys are finally reaching the point where, we need to start like coming up with stuff. Like, what is science fact now that we've introduced all of these things? Like, how are we building on this? And so I'm curious, how much is that you guys in the writer's room? How much are you talking to futurists? How much are you looking at like what people are working on now and saying, maybe we could do this?
We have a lot of that starts in the writer's room. We also have a full-time researcher, and we also rely a lot on Garrett Reisman, who's our technical consultant, who is an actual NASA astronaut, and he been with the projects from the very beginning. And Garrett is very up to date on all that stuff. And we'll come in, and he comes into the writer's room periodically to just kind of say, okay, this is all fun, guys, but this couldn't actually do this. We're like, really? What? We whine, and he's like, no. But he's also good about helping us figure out a way to accomplish the dramatic goal of what we're trying to do, even if the physics is like completely bonkers in what we've pitched to him. But he keeps us informed of, what are theoretical drives for propulsion systems, for engines, how would life support theoretically work, what's even further on the horizon of how those things would work as you really start building that stuff out. So we try to keep current with what people are actually thinking and what's a theoretical possibility.
Usually with shows, every season you get to build a new set. So I'm just curious, is there a new set that fans can look forward to in season 5?
There are multiple new sets in season 5, and if you look at the show, we've done that almost every year because of those time jumps. We've essentially had to reinvent the show every season. There's certain sets that we sort of expanded on and built on in the first couple of years. But now the Martian base is much bigger. It has its own mission control, and it's like it's much bigger operation than what it was. And as a result, we had to create a lot of new sets for Mars.
I definitely want to touch on, I thought, and I don't know if you've seen it, I thought Picard season 3 was fantastic. And I'm just curious, did you watch? What was your take on it?
I did, and it was enormously gratifying to see the gang back together. It touched me. It touched me more than I thought it would. I was like, oh man, that's so cool. When they revealed Worf was one of my favorite beats in that whole thing. Oh, that's Worf. That's so great, And just seeing them together again and sharing the screen together and how comfortable they were being around each other and doing the show. And it was really fun. I'm really glad they did that.
What I also loved, and I don't know how they did it because I know that you only have so much budget, but that last episode when they recreated the ship, I was like, how the F did you guys pull this off?
I know. I'm curious myself. I need to ask them and call them like, how did you do this? Because they really pulled it off.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I know how expensive it is to do things.
Yeah.
And like, that's a set. That is not cheap to do. You got to find the blueprints. You got to, how do you make this work?
It's a whole thing. Yeah. It must have tortured them to get to that place.
I mean, and also I'm a little bit like, what do I need to do to keep that set? Like, I will just find a place for it.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I know.
It's just, anyway, I'm glad you enjoyed that season though. When you think back on the shows that you've worked on so many different things, and I know you've probably been asked this and it's a little generic and I apologize, but when you think back on like TNG, DS9, Battlestar, like the things you've done, do you have an actual episode that you're like, man, this is really good? Like, we really did this one. You know what I mean? Like ones that really stand out for you.
Yeah, there's probably one of those in each of the series I worked on. And they also occurred at different points in my career, so I take pride in them for different reasons at different points. 33 is still the one I look back on, and I screened recently with an audience, and I was like, wow, this one really holds up. And it was the way I did that one I was very proud of.
Season 2, episode 1, I believe?
Season 1, episode 1.
My bad, everyone. I'm making myself really look stupid. I apologize.
And that one was it's a great piece of television. It's a great way to kick off the series after the miniseries. It's sort of a second pilot for the show.
How I say season 2, I don't know. Go on.
It's a great episode. And then Next Generation, Data's Day is one I've always been very proud of because it was such a conceptual show, and I was early in my career to tackle something like that. It was such a character piece, and the action adventure was on a very low boil, and I really liked doing that. I worked, on Deep Space Nine. There's a bunch of them. Our man Bashir is like a standout that was like, this is fun. Let's have fun for an episode, and really let's blend Bond and Trek, and really go to town on it. And so, and In the Pale Moonlight was really a fantastic show, and they all have special places in my heart.
Yeah, every episode you just mentioned are like favorites. Also, I don't know anyone that's like, sometimes online people can be a little whatever. But I don't know anyone who has said anything bad about 33. That's like just an episode universally loved.
Yeah, it really, really worked. And it was, the cast coming back together. There had been an extended break between the miniseries and the start of the series. So they hadn't been back together again in quite a while and didn't even know if the show was going to happen. So them coming together and doing the first table read and really wanting to get it right. And I remember Eddie almost telling the cast that hey, you guys, none of you should sleep. None of us should sleep. We should really do it. Let's be awake for 5 days. And they were like, yeah, okay, that sounds fun. But it was really kind of cool.
I'm just thinking about that. I'm like, I don't think people would be able to remember their lines.
Yeah,
but it's a great idea.
But it was great, and he went for it. Eddie walks the walk, and he stayed up himself like a long time.
I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. He just a tremendous amount of respect.
Yeah,
Do you actually pay attention? Because there's been talk about doing like a new Battlestar or a movie. Like I've heard rumblings for so long. Do you pay attention to this stuff? What are your thoughts?
I mean, it certainly catches my attention whenever it's mentioned. But like you said, they've been talking about it for a long time. Sam Ismail called me a couple of years ago, maybe several years ago now, just to say he was doing it and was I okay with that. And it was lovely. He didn't need my permission, and I just thought it was a nice courtesy call. And I told him, Godspeed. And I mean, I came in and reinvented it. So, what am I going to say about anyone else who wants to do it? And, I wish them well.
Yeah, I think the idea is so good. It's just a question of like, how do you do it better? What's going to be different about it? Like, why, you know what I mean?
I absolutely do. You know, I mean, in all modesty, we set a very high bar for what that show is. And so that's
100%.
That's a task for whoever comes after us.
And also, like, you're playing with exactly like, and people love your Battlestar, so it's like you're gonna have to appeal to all those fans and find a way to appeal to new fans. It's a tricky game.
It is, but you know, it can be done. There's a lot of talented people out there, and we'll see what they come up with.
Sure. Also, Sam is a very talented writer.
Absolutely.
I think that he is one of the few people that I'm like, oh, wait, I actually am curious. Like, after Mr. Robot, like, if you have an eye...
Oh, I'm curious to see what it is. Yeah, I mean, I'll watch and sign me up.
I'm just about out of time with you. I am just curious, though, because you're involved in so many different things. How does it actually work for you during the week? Like Monday through Friday? Are you working on multiple things throughout the day? Like, do you spend like a week on one thing and then, you know what I mean?
It really varies a lot. There are definitely days when I'm jumping multiple projects. And right now, like in this moment in time, most of my time is spent on developing new things on the new Sony deal. So I'm talking to new writers, or I'm talking to the studio about different projects, or I'm working up pitches or story outlines on new things. And then there's other weeks where I'm pulled into some of the other shows and get more involved in some of those story conferences or something. And then if something's of mine is in production, then that takes over. So there's really, but it is, I try to keep it Monday through Friday, basically. I try to have a life.
I need to learn how you do that. On that note, sir, I can continue talking, but I'm just going to say thank you so much. And I really hope you have a fantastic con.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.